Oh, never mind. Okay. Hello, my noble band of outlaws. Outlaw Samurai coming at you live with a video. Well, if you all tune in to the live stream now, starting at the correct time, that would be awesome. But if you don't, that's okay too. I'm just going to go ahead and start with the Q&A. Or rather, oh, we have a viewer! Thank you, my noble outlaw. Please write something in the chat so I know who you are so I can thank you properly. In the meantime, never mind. I got my hopes up and now no one's watching. Viewer count is 0. Oh, we got a viewer! Thank you, my noble outlaw. Now, please write something in the comments so I can, the chat thingy. No, never mind. Okay. Well, I know this can be viewed later on after the live stream as one of my videos. So I'm just going to go ahead into the video and hope y'all tune in. I was at Menards and I got these. And Outlaw Samurai, what are you thinking? You're a swordsman, for crying out loud. What are you doing with knives? Especially kitchen knives. Well, these kitchen knives caught my eye, not only because of the finish on them, which is kind of like a forged finish, but also because of the material that they are made from, and I mean the steel. These knives are made out of premium DIN 1.4116 high carbon stainless steel. For those of you who don't know, stainless steel can have a rather large carbon content, despite what people will tell you. Very nice, very keen edge. Wish the handles were a little thicker, but all in all, not a bad knife. Not the thickest of blades. These are Luna brand, by the way. And this is the very generic Asian utility. Yes, because just because this is an Asian style cooking knife. But without further ado, don'ts and probably shouldn'ts. Very nice, very nice. Comes with a hard plastic sheath. Very, very nice retention. There will be a cutting video. I know that's weird and rare for me to do, a cutting video on these at a later date. And this is another one of the DIN 1.4116 high carbon stainless steel blades. This is the Santoku. Santoku model. Again, Very nice. Very sharp. And the edge and the sheath retention. Very, very good. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be dual wielding these in some kind of sense when I do the cutting video, like I did with the Christmas video. But very good knives, nonetheless. I can't redo this video now that I've started it, so it's going to turn into a bit of a live unboxing and any chance for someone to come in and comment. Q&A is still open, people. Just type your question in the chat, and I'll try to answer it as swiftly as possible. Hit my pot. Not weed, just my pot. Okay, now for the purpose of this video. And that is for your pretty much your average everyday guy. You're scrolling through YouTube and you start coming across YouTubers like the Backyard Knife Dude, back when he was Backyard Samurai, or Matthew Jensen, Eric Hussein, Samurai Bird, Freestyle Swordsman, Mountaineer Samurai, or yours truly, Outlaw Samurai, or The Ronin. Shout out to my boy The Ronin. But in any case, or The Replay Ronin, I believe. It's either The Ronin or The Replay Ronin. One of the two. Sorry if I don't get your name correct. I haven't viewed your channel as much because I only found you within the last 6 months. So I haven't fully committed your name to my memory yet. And it's nothing personal. It's just there are people I work with and I still don't know their names. And they have name tags. But in any case, so in any case, you're watching these videos and you're like, that looks cool. I want to get into backyard cutting. But you go and you look up katana and you see $300, $500, $600 katana, and then you see like $50 katana, and the prices and the prices and qualities differ extremely between brand and steel. Basically, it comes down to three things: brand, steel, and quench for any kind of sword or cutting blade. Best websites to go to for swords are, of course, the Sword Buyer's Guide, Swords of Might, Swords of Northshire, TrueSword.com, and if you're in the continental U.S., Cult of Athena, Dark Sword Armory, Albion. These are all sword brands, Musashi, but some of those brands are high-end, some aren't. And when you want to get into backyard cutting, it's like, it's like the difference. It's basically the same as getting into guns or bows or something like that. Like archery is the big thing. How do I get into archery? And there's a whole slew of different videos on that on YouTube, but not really how to get into backyard cutting. I made a shorter version of this as an actual video earlier as kind of practice, because I know I ramble. The live stream's my way to get all my ramblings out. And the short version is for those who don't really want to sit through my ramblings. I did make it about 10 or 11 minutes, so it's not a huge video. And I may do a more concise version of that later on, depending on how this goes. But in any case, so you want to get into backyard cutting. Where do you begin? Well, honestly, a lot of people underestimate the value of the humble machete. A machete can run you anywhere from $5 to honestly $100, and maybe even more than that, depending on the machete. But they usually average out around $5 to $30. So you're not going to break the bank. And machetes are actually how I started getting into backyard cutting. I didn't have a lot of money in my teenage years. What money I did usually end up having, I usually spent on either Yu-Gi-Oh cards or food. I still spend most of my money on food. But in any case, machetes are pretty much the black sheep of the backyard cutting community, in my opinion, is they don't get the recognition and love that they honestly deserve, in my opinion, because a machete, you can learn proper edge alignment. You can even do different flourishes and tricks with a machete that you wouldn't really be able to do with a two-handed sword without more practice. And honestly, swinging a machete around will give you a good basis if you ever want to use one-handed swords like sabers, arming swords, Viking swords, some Dao, some Jian, cutlasses, stuff like that. So the humble machete, in my opinion, is a good means of starting out. They come very sharp most of the time. And because of how thin they are, and because they're mostly made out of spring steel, they are extremely forgiving. And as long as you've got good edge alignment, they'll basically soar through most bottles with a good amount of speed and power. So the machete, in my humble opinion, if you're just starting out and you don't want to break the bank, the machete is the way to go. Especially considering that at the end of the day, when you're done playing around with bottles and you have brush and stuff, and you have like heavy brush you need to clear like bushes and crap, you can just get your machete and whack, whack, whack. Bushes are cleared. Next day, clean it up, maybe just a few licks on a work sharp, and go back to bottle cutting. That's the thing. You need a sharp blade to do bottle cutting of any kind. To actually cut the bottles, you need a sharp blade. And don't listen to a katana fanboy consider sharp blades. Okay? Those are not sharp. They can't even cut fucking paper. Alright? These, although they were on sales at $10 at Menards, we just saw are sharp. This is what I consider sharp. But yeah. The next step up from there, granted I have a few, granted the swords I've chosen to represent the price categories, they are kind of all over the place in terms of what they are, but their prices kind of mesh up. The next step up from the $30 machete is, and we know this is an old sword. This is the first sword I ever bought. It's old, it's used, it's abused, and it's still kicking. And the Ito is still tight. With how much I swung this thing around when I first got it, I basically spent every day swinging this thing. But that's beside the point. This is the Ace Martial Arts $50 1045 katana from Amazon. And this is a very good, very well-priced entry-level katana. There's nothing fancy about this sword. It's simple, copper alloy fittings. These are turning green. Fake Samegawa, cotton wrap, Chiblo aluminum dyed Manuki, cheap brass Habaki, Seppa, copper alloy Suba. I also took the fake Hamon off this because I think it looks a lot better without that fake Hamon. As you can see, there's a whole lot of dings on the back of this thing from when I smashed the spine of another sword into it while I was batoning through a piece of wood. So I guess you could say I do destructive testing sometimes. But I really only do the destructive shit when I think the sword can handle it. Or when I get stupid and bored and shit happens. But in any case, this is the 1045 katana. Now, Ace Martial Arts is the supplier on Amazon. I think Musashi is the manufacturer, but in any case. So, 1045 is a very good beginner steel. It's tough. It does tend to bend more on bad cuts, so you have to kind of bend it back. But for the beginner who's just starting out, it's a perfect blade to use. And $50 is a little bit of a step up from the machete, but it's not going to break your bank, and it's not going to be something that you're going to be overly dramatic about dinging up. Like, oh, I chipped the edge on this thing. It's like, though it was just like it was just a $50 sword, so I'm not too concerned about it, but still it's there. Now, this was a $3,000 sword. Like, oh my! Like, that kind of reaction you'd have. But yeah. This is just a simple $50, no glitz, no glamour sword that is made for beginners, for people just starting out, or people who, honestly, for anyone, really, this is pretty much a jack of all trades, every man's sword. It's a master of none, but basically you do everything sword, every swordy thing you can think of a sword that can sword. Basically, it can do everything that you would assume a sword can do. It can thrust, it can slash, it can cut. It can do everything a sword can do. It fills its role as the beginner's sword. And also, because it's not an overly big sword, it's very nimble and easy to move around. As you can see, I can basically just maneuver this if I had to with just my wrist and minimal arm movement. But yeah, very good sword, and it's light. And because it's 1045, you will have to sharpen this after a few cutting sessions, since 1045 does not hold an edge very well. But as I said, this is a beginner's sword, so it's not really meant to be taken to a competition or anything and used in professional settings. But yeah, $50 won't break your bank. Very much a beginner's sword, a first-timer sword. And if you don't want to go through the process of buying the machete first, this is a good starter sword for anyone to learn with. Very good sword for the price you pay, which is about $50 at the time I bought it, which was 3-4 years ago, somewhere around there. The next step up is a $100 sword. This is the Honshu Tactical Wakazaki. Now, in my original video, I did not include this. I kind of went over a much broader category, but this is really the only new blade added to the bunch. And this is it runs for $99, but it's basically $100. I think I paid like $108 for it. But in any case, this is a one step above the crane katana. This is 1060 medium carbon steel. It says high carbon, but 1060 is actually a medium carbon steel with a rubberized grip, stainless steel pommel, and teardrop tsuba. Now, I actually had to JB weld the pommel back onto this because I broke it off, but it's fine now. Now, as you'll see right off the bat, in terms of blade length, the Wakazaki is much shorter than the katana. And that's because this is a Wakazaki and not a katana. But this is more of a quality thing. This is a much sturdier blade than the $50 Crane Katana, much thicker, much stronger. And because it's 1060, it will hold a keener edge than the 1045, but also has a slight bit more toughness and durability than 1045. So, very good sword. Recommended, $100. You can get this at TrueSwords.com. Unfortunately, I'm not sponsored by anybody. But yeah, now who would I recommend this for? I'd recommend this for somebody who's kind of, okay, I've got a few weeks of kind of messing around with swords under my belt. Maybe it's time I upgrade. Like, you got all your bills and shit out of the way, and you just like, I want to buy a slightly better sword. They do have an actual full-size katana version of this, but that's at my parents' place, not here. So I have to use the Wakizaki to fill in for it. Just pretend the blade's longer. The handle's basically the same on both. So this is for like, okay, so I have like a month of cutting experience under my belt. I want something a little better that I don't have to continuously sharpen as much. Basically, baby as much as the 1045, because after about 2 or 3 decent cutting sessions, you're going to have to resharpen the 1045. This will go through about maybe, I haven't really done a new cutting video with this yet, with its new sharpened edge. Watch the short Hanju from dull to sharp. Because this thing basically comes with, I want to say a masonry chisel's edge. But I sharpened it since then. So very good blade, very keen. And for those of you who are going to immediately be like, show me, don't tell me. Oop, no. It can do it. Just not very well. Because remember, this is a thick as shit blade. It's basically the definition of crowbar with an edge. But in any case, I'd recommend this sword for the one who had some experience under his belt, doesn't want to keep having to baby his sword as much, and is a little bit more experienced than a beginner. Slightly above beginner would be a novice. I'd recommend this for the novice backyard cutter. Or swordsman in general. Plastic sheath kind of deal with leather wrapping. Just the leather's there for decoration. It doesn't do anything. The next sword up, and I know a lot of you One Piece fans are going to recognize this off the bat, and you're probably going to say, Outlaw Samurai, what the hell are you thinking? This is a replica of Enma from One Piece, which is an anime sword. But if we look at the blade, you can obviously tell it was made to do some kind of cutting. Now, this is I believe I paid $150 for this sword. It's got the flaming pattern and everything, basically straight out of the anime. Except in the anime, it's purple, not black. When it was first revealed, everyone thought it was going to be a black sword. Then Oda said, haha, I trolled you guys, it's purple. Which, honestly, no. Honestly, any true One Piece fan and anyone who truly reps my boy Zoro, we're not going to give a fuck what the color of the sword is. You could give him the freaking, well, maybe not a hot pink sword, but you could give him a more pinkish sword. And the second it does something awesome, immediately that sword's going to become everyone's favorite. This sword in the anime actually replaced Shushiri, his other sword, as my favorite. But I'm not getting into that. I paid $150 for this sword. It is 1045, But the key difference with this sword versus the first sword is price. This I would recommend for if you want to get into backyard cutting and you're also an anime lover or an otaku like me, where you're watching your favorite anime and it's like, oh, Zoro doing like Ichidai Danzen Zandai Sakai. Like his 1 billion fold, 1 billion worlds, 3,000 worlds technique. Yeah, Zoro's whole sword style thing is based off of Buddhism and shit. But in any case, if you want to get into backyard cutting and you love anime and you love the anime swords and you want to do stuff like that, I'd recommend getting a sword like this. This particular model is bolted in place at the bottom here. I can't show you because I super glued this in place because it got annoying and it wouldn't stay on, and I just said fuck it. But yeah, I'd recommend. Oh, I thought that was going badly. I'd recommend this sword for the anime lover who wants to get into backyard cutting. It is almost 3 times as expensive as this sword, but you're also paying for the fact that this sword has a hell of a lot more, I want to say, embellishments, really unnecessary embellishments, but embellishments nonetheless. I mean, you get all these are plastic, this is metal, this plastic, metal. I mean, you're getting all the anime, mostly all the anime accurate kind of decoration and everything that the sword has. So you're paying for the decoration and everything else. This also comes with a sword box. You know, backyard, the sword collectors out there, oh, fucking presentation box. That means it's like $100 went into making the goddamn box. 25 went into making the sword, and 25 went into making the scabbard or saya. But yeah, you're paying for the box and everything else. But yeah, this I would recommend for the anime lover who wants to get into backyard cutting and kind of gives you that Zoro feel. Like, we all remember when Zoro first pulled this sword and his haki gets drained and his arm becomes a mummy and he's like, bitch, give that back! And he takes his haki back from the sword. Enma is a cursed sword in One Piece. It will basically kill anyone and anything it deems unworthy of using its power. And Enma in Buddhist mythology is the guardian king of hell. So, makes sense that our boy Zoro would have a devil sword in a world of devil fruits. So there's that. That I would recommend for the anime lover. Next sword up for discussion is the Sokuchikara Scorn Differentially Hardened T10 sword. This sword I would definitely recommend. I wouldn't recommend this to a beginner necessarily. I'll get into that in a second. It is differentially hardened, so it will have a tendency to bend and stay bent instead of spring back to shape, which is the one downside of differential hardening a blade, is that when it bends, it stays bent, and it's almost impossible to get it to go back to perfectly straight as it was before. Not without meticulously inching its way through without meticulously inching its way through the jaws of a table vise. But yeah, and just see if I can get some light over here. Show you that Hammond pattern. Oh, there it is. See? Right there. Can you see it? I don't have the ability to really like full on zoom into the Hamon. You have to get into the right light. It's very, very faint, but also very, very visible when the right light hits it. In any case, you saw the cutting video for this sword, and I think it's actually a tad dull. Very sharp at the tip. But in any case, this I would not recommend to a beginner in the terms of beginner swordsman. All right? A beginner in backyard cutting. Now, if it's going to be, and I have to clarify this. First of all, I would recommend this sword for the advanced, after novice, advanced practitioner, because it is differentially hardened, once you start getting like more and more experience under your belt, you're going to start testing your limits more and your skill more, and you're going to go from Ice Mountain water bottles to Gatorade, Fiji, Ice Mountain, oil, like old oil bottles, even the 5-gallon jugs at some point, which I am actually going to do a 4-gallon jug cutting video at some point in the future. You're going to start getting into the bigger and bigger targets, and you're also going to start getting into tatami mats and bamboo and stuff like that. Not something a beginner would cut. Very much an advanced practitioner. Hence why I would recommend this sword to an advanced practitioner. But what I would recommend as a beginner would be a beginner differentially hardened sword. This is a $300, well, actually not. This is actually, at the time I bought this was $200 something sword. And I think it was like $280 something. But in any case, since it is sub $300, you do get a differentially hardened blade for $200, which makes this a very good deal for the money. And because it's not that expensive, if you do something and you make it take a bend, you're not going to be as overly, what's the word I'm thinking of? Concerned or overly enraged than if you were going to use a Skyjiro Forged differentially hardened sword or a Dynasty Forged or something like those. Musashi does offer differentially hardened 1060 swords for around the same price, but T10 is basically a Chinese equivalent to 1095. And 1095 to a lot of sword enthusiasts is basically the king of sword steels for edge retention and everything else. Personally, I'd rather have a 1095 and 5160 laminated steel blade. 1095 edge for the edge retention, 5160 for shock absorption. You basically get a differentially hardened blade, but mono hardened it, in honesty. But yeah, I would not recommend this for a beginner in terms of just starting out, but an advanced beginner is what I should say. Advanced in his swordsmanship, but just dipping his toes into the deeper end of this pool of differentially hardened swords. So this is a beginner in terms of differentially hardened swords for an advanced practitioner. Now, I would also personally recommend this. I guess I should contradict myself a little bit. I would actually give this sword to a beginner to a first-time swordsman in the terms of me knowing what he's going to cut ahead of time. If I'm going to teach someone or show someone how to cut, and they want to basically use a real samurai sword in terms of differentially hardened, not actual Nihonto, but I would give them this sword to kind of play around with, and like water bottles and stuff, this sword would perfectly be suited for. I'd even say this sword would be perfectly suited to cut tatami or bamboo, but not in a beginner's hands, because an expert will basically like one to aim, like one to gauge, one to aim, and like one to gauge, one for edge alignment, and one to aim. Basically, they're going to do the little 3-tap test that we see sometimes, where they're taking their stance, keeping the blade in front of them, and then having proper follow through. A novice, on the other hand, will hold the blade out in front of them, take a stance, and as they swing, they'll naturally turn the blade some. It's very easy to turn a blade mid-cut, especially when you start cutting a thick target. It's very easy for that sword to kind of cockeye itself through the target or scallop its way through. And that could bend the sword. So yes, advanced. I would definitely recommend this for an advanced sword practitioner and a beginner differentially hardened blade. The next sword we have up on the quote-unquote chopping block. We've all seen it. You've seen me use it before, and you saw it in the Christmas video. The Dragon King Winter Sun Katana. In my opinion, old katana. This is actually made of 5160 spring steel. And because of that, not only would this fall into a category of an advanced swordsman, but this could also be used by, after advanced, I would consider a master swordsman. So after you go advanced, this would also be a very good blade for a master swordsman. It's very light and nimble, but also it's very light and nimble, quick on the cut, and you can also utilize speed draws or quick draws. But also, because it's made out of 5160 spring steel, this is actually a good teacher's sword, a teaching blade. And what I mean by that is, basically, spring steels are almost impossible to force, almost impossible for them to take a bend. They're literally designed to bend and spring back. And because of that aspect, the 5160 sword, in my opinion, is a very good sword for teaching somebody. And because of this long blade, a larger stature man or woman, really, if you're like 6 feet something, this would be a perfect sword for you. But in any case, because it is 5160 spring steel, it is a very good sword for beginners to use as well. But the price does not justify buying this as a beginner's sword unless you really intend to devote yourself to training. Because this is a $300 plus sword. At Cult of Athena, sometimes this sword will go in between $350 to $400. I bought it for $378, but that was with a sizzle payment plan. So I didn't buy it outright. I don't really buy anything from Cult of Athena outright. I always put it on sizzle. So that way I can earn a paycheck in between buying swords and kind of recoup my losses. Or gains, in some opinions. But in any case, because of the fact that this is 5160, it's a good trainer sword. And I actually taught Outlaw Knight how to cut with a katana using this sword. So I would recommend this for really anyone from beginner to master class swordsman. This is really a perfect all-around cutting sword perfect all-around sword that you can basically put in the hands of anyone and they'll be able to cut pretty much anything from water bottles to bamboo to tatami mats to even the big-ass water jugs and shit. That's just... Also, Dragon King, they've pretty much made a loyal customer out of me. Because I have this and the Spring Sakura, and you damn well know your boy Outlaw is going to be getting Summer Lotus and Autumn Leaf as well. I'm going to complete the entire four seasons collection of Dragon King at some point. I've been saying that for the last 1.5 to 2 years, but I am going to do it. So, there's the Dragon King Winter Sun Katana. Not much more to say on that. The next sword is a $400 sword, which I've done a lot of customizing to, as you can see. Made a new Suba, rewrapped it, lost the kasha in the wood somewhere, put an orange wrapping on it. This is the Cold Steel Warrior Series Katana, also known as Pine Splitter, also known as my bushcrafting sword. And I don't care what anyone says, swords are ultimate bushcrafting blades. I made a whole 23-minute video on that. Though I might just strip everything from the habaki down and make like a solid, coherent, one-piece grip for this thing. But in any case, this is the $400 Warrior Series Katana. This is a complete and total beater blade. This is designed to go... This is a sword designed to give to literally anyone in the world, point them at a tree, and tell them to go full ham lumberjack on. Alright? I have said this once, I said it twice, and obviously I must say it thrice. Cold Steel makes some goddamn strong swords. Okay? And that ain't no lie. You've seen what I've done with some of these swords. This is also... We're getting into the more, like, master swordsman in terms of really getting the full potential out of the blade territory, but also turn around and kind of give, like, hey, Oliver, you can use this for today's practice. Go cut those bottles. Kind of thing. It's basically, you can just hand it to someone and say, here, you're going to use this to learn to cut today. Now, being a $400 sword, this is actually a very good sword to use, especially if you have a house with high ceilings. It has a relatively short blade, so you can actually do a few, like, simple kata, like what I'm doing. Not overly exaggerated or anything, but you can actually perform simple kata indoors with this thing. But yeah, this will definitely go through pretty much anything you'll put in front of it within reason. This will cut through small trees and saplings. This will cut through bamboo, tatami mats, water bottles, big-ass 5-gallon water jugs. I have yet to find anything I can't cut through with this thing, short of something made of metal or some other hard material. Might need to polish this a bit. I don't know if that's just gunk from the scabbard, or might need to take some polish to this sword at some point. But yeah, it's been the $400 Warrior Series Katana remodel. The next sword on ye old chopping block, so to speak, you all know it. You've all seen it. Most of my Cold Steel playlist is about it. My top bitch, the Warrior O Series Katana. or as I like to call her, my Thunder Demon's Fang. This is a $700 sword, and honestly, this is not something I could. This is literally the only sword within the last 3 or 4 that is strictly a master swordsman only kind of sword. Mostly because of its size and its weight. If we compare it to the Scorn katana, for example, look at the difference in blade size. That is almost, I want to say about 9 inches difference in blade size. Don't worry, the floor is wood. 9 inches of blade size between a standard size katana and Cold Steel. You really missed the ball when labeling this. You could have just called this the Warrior Series Handachi, because this is basically a tachi, not an O katana. The Dragon King Winter Sun, that is what I consider an O katana. This is more of a Handachi because it doesn't have tachi fittings. But yeah, its size is one of the reasons why I would not recommend this be given to any kind of beginner. Maybe, no, second thought, not an advanced student either. Well, not a beginner, not a novice. Maybe an advanced student if he has good control over his blades, but a master is really what is required to wield this sword. Because I really shouldn't have sheathed the bloody thing if I'm going to use it as my comparison. Shouldn't have sheathed it. Because if we also take a look here, we can see there's a massive, massive difference in thickness between the Scorn and the Warrior. There's also, and I know a lot of you are going to freak out about me touching the swords with bare hands, but bear with it. A massive difference in thickness at the tip. I've literally cut down small trees that would have been used for firewood with this sword. I've done the same thing with its little sister, the Warrior Katana, the Warrior Katana too. So yes, this is not a sword for beginners or for anyone short of a master because of its size and its weight. I did forget to mention something about both this sword and the other sword. This is 1055 spring steel, which is between 1040 and 1060. But the way Cold Steel heat treats and makes their swords, this is a damn good blade, as we saw. And it still holds its edge. I've only had to resharpen this thing like 2 months ago. Granted, I haven't really done anything except for the Shake the Rust Off shorts with this thing since, but still. So yeah. And also its weight. This sword weighs about, I think, on Cult of Athena. Bear with me, my noble band of outlaws, as I am trying to, not what I wanted to do, as I am trying to look up the specs for this sword. I believe it is 5 pounds. Specifications. Oh no, the sword's weight is 3 pounds 2.9 ounces. So almost 4 or 5 pound sword. So this is not something that just anyone can pick up and use. Even me, using this sword so much, still has trouble just stopping the sword short mid-swing, which is a practice a lot of people do to learn control. I would recommend its little sister to be given to a novice because it's much shorter and lighter, but not this. This is strictly a master level sword that requires trained hands to wield properly. So, that has been my live stream. I didn't really get to do a lot of Q&As since no one tuned in. But I hope y'all enjoyed my almost hour-long rant. So until next time, my noble band of outlaws, outlaw samurai, tells all y'all, be crazy rednecks, be safe and use your weapons. I'm out. Peace. And let me know in the comments to this video if you want me to do another live stream. I may do one Saturday when I'm with my aunt at her place. In fact, I'll put that on the community post. A second live stream will take place tomorrow with Outlaw Wiccan. And maybe then we can finally do some goddamn Q&As. In any case, I'm out. Peace.